You've heard about field experiences and pre-service music education programs, but today we're talking about one of those programs that's a little bit different on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Well, welcome to this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. I'm Mark Despotakis. Thanks for joining us. So as you know, sometimes on the podcast, we like to talk about things that PMEA members are doing to kind of share some of their knowledge, some of their experiences that might be valuable for other members to say, boy, I never thought of that. That's something that would be interesting. So that's what we're doing today. And I'm not going to preface it and explain what it is because the guests today are going to be able to do it far better than I could. So I don't want to steal anybody's thunder and do it the wrong way. So let me bring all of our guests in today. Everyone here is some affiliation to Slippery Rock University, pretty major affiliations, I would say. Dr. Kathy Melago, who is, Slippery Rock graduate, but also is a professor of music education at Slippery Rock. And if you've been to a PMEA conference, you've seen Kathy around for sure. So we have Rose Obergefell. Did I get it right? Who is a senior music education major at Slippery Rock, and Nate Presutti, who is a junior music education major at Slippery Rock. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
So what we're here to talk about is a field experience trip that you and some other students did, and I know this is something that's happened other years at Slippery Rock as well with music education majors. So I guess let's just start with level setting. Tell us what this is. Kathy, maybe you're probably the best person because you've been on a few of these to tell us what exactly this is.
Yeah, so it's a field experience. So the music teacher educators in the world will be familiar with that, where students, pre-service teachers are going out in schools and observing, assisting, and teaching in the schools. And our current in-service teachers will be familiar with having pre-service teachers come in sometimes and do these short-term experiences. So this particular one is optional for students. We do it every other year in January. This is the 5th time we've done it. And it's in New Mexico. So you're probably wondering why and how this occurred that we are doing this in New Mexico. So back in 2014, my college roommate from Ohio State, Jenny, she and I commissioned 6 pieces for flute and clarinet duet. And so her school went back before Slippery Rock did. So January of 2014, we premiered those pieces at her school. And at the time she was teaching at Eastern New Mexico in Portales, New Mexico. So my husband and I went and did a little side trip when we went to Santa Fe. And we were like, whoa, it's so amazing here. It's so different from home. So we got back to school in that spring, and the president of the university at the time, she's 2 presidents ago, she was wanting students to study away. So her initial thing was to study abroad. And we were like, that might be a big stretch for some of our students who maybe have never left Butler County. So what we ended up doing is my wheels started turning when she said, how about just study away? Like get out of this area and experience something new while you're at the Rock. So I thought, ooh, I just was somewhere new that was pretty cool and pretty different from Slippery Rock. And so I started brainstorming doing a field experience. And my initial thought was, we just go there to the Santa Fe Public Schools. We do field experience, just like we would do here, but only every day and in a short period of time. But what ended up happening as I talked to the partner, the initial partner at the Santa Fe Public Schools, she was like, oh man, that would be a nice time of the year to come for you. But unfortunately, our music teachers are going to be out for some of those days because they're going to be at the New Mexico Music Educators Association conference. And here's me going, wait, this does not sound like a bad thing. This sounds actually like a really great opportunity. So we built that in the very first year. And then we built in some other professional development too. So there's evening speakers sometimes, and it just depends on the year what types of other things we do. And then obviously being somewhere so different, we have a cultural arm. So there's basically 3 parts to the field experience: the traditional field experience stuff where the students go into the schools and teach. observe, assist, teach. There's the professional development part of it with the New Mexico Music Ed Association conference and guest speakers, and then the cultural events we do. And the students probably will share some of those kinds of things with you. But two other partners that we partner with for field experience, one is the Santa Fe Indian School. And we didn't do that the first year, but we're driving up and down this one road and we keep driving past this Santa Fe Indian School. And so before the next trip, I was like, I got to figure out what's going on there. And we connected with the teacher there. So for the past 4 trips, we've also co-taught, and that's the 4 students that we take from Slippery Rock, plus Jonathan Helmick, who is my co-teacher for that experience, and me. We all teach together a lesson, and the teacher, the band teacher there, also teaches the lesson with us. They have a new teacher this year, and he was right with us, like also co-teaching the lesson, which is an awesome experience just for us all to work together with that. And then we also visit the New Mexico School for the Arts for a tour and just to see what that school's like. It's a residential school for students. It's kind of like Lincoln Park in a way if you're from Western PA, but it's residential. And also the Santa Fe Indian School is residential. The Santa Fe Indian School's 6th through 12th grade. And so that brings a whole different dynamic. So just so many rich experiences and things to experience while we're there. That's it in as quick of a nutshell as I can give you as an intro.
Yeah, so we'll probably dive into a little bit more of some of those pieces of the puzzle as we go along. But I want to turn to Rose and Nate. So you're coming into this like doing a field experience, but then saying, "Hey, we're going to get on a plane and go do it somewhere else." I'm curious for what piqued your interest, maybe in wanting to go and do this.
For me, it was hearing other people talk about it who had been on the trip before. I was able to talk to a couple people when I was considering going on the trip, and they had nothing but good things to say. So just hearing their experiences really was like, okay, I should do this.
Yeah, for me, it was the same exact thing. And, I was looking back at pictures from previous years and seeing all the great experiences they were having with that. And just getting an opportunity to teach somewhere different to see like, oh, after I graduate from here, maybe this is an option for me. So, yeah.
So I'm curious then, and this is probably something that it'd be interested from all of your perspectives on. So much you're talking about is the difference there. So whether you've done a field experience here or not, you've certainly been around music education here. And we can all say that music education is offered in a variety of ways here. And we can say it's different from one part of the state to the other, even one part of a county to another. I'm curious then, what were the things that stuck out to you as, well, this was really different to me. This was the thing that was different, or the things that were different. What was it? And I would imagine, Kathy, you probably have a lot of them I've seen, over time, but I'm curious for all of your perspectives on that.
Yeah. So one really great thing was the school that I was in versus the school that Rose was in was very different. So I was at Santa Fe High School, and I was with their 9 through 12 choral program. And there was 4 ensembles. It was the beginning treble choir, the advanced treble choir, the beginner tenor and bass choir, and the advanced mixed choir. And one of the things that we talked about with the teacher is that just within that school district, they have a wide range of students. It was very diverse. Some of the students were from Santa Fe and very wealthy and privileged, and then some of the students were not. And so it was really great to see how that teacher was able to, he did tons of like team building activities. Even, usually sometimes we think of that like at the beginning of the year where we're building the culture in the classroom. He does them year round all the time to connect all the students with each other. And so that was one of the biggest things I noticed was it was such very diverse populations.
Similar experience for me. I was at Capitol High School with high school band, and there was 1 full band class, 2 small group lessons, which were like interesting combinations of instruments. So people who were starting their instruments later on were just in those small group lessons, and then 2 music appreciation classes. but the big difference that I noticed was there was a very high population of English language learners. And like here, you might have one or two students in a classroom where this was the majority of students were bilingual or only spoke Spanish. There were only a couple students who only spoke Spanish, but that learning to work with that with English language learners very closely was a really interesting experience for sure. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's been interesting for me to see the different types of classes that are offered. For example, around here, if there's a guitar class offered, it tends to be, we're learning to play like maybe modern band kinds of things, popular music. We're learning chords and going to kind of rock out, which they do also sometimes there, but they also they learn to play guitar in the classical style. So actually at their Allstate, there's a guitar ensemble, which it's like the size of like the concert band at PMEA, only everyone's playing the guitar and they're, holding it in classical style, and they're playing music that's written for guitar ensemble. And that's just something you just don't see around here at all. So for me, that's one of the big differences. The other one is and this isn't necessarily specific to the school, but at the NMMEA conference, they do their honors ensembles. And so we have the opportunity to see, there's a band that's selected, a choir that's selected and whatnot, but they have a general music group that's selected. And so you usually get to see something that's really interesting, different type of music there. And their All-State conference is held on a college campus, and it's much more intimate than PMEA. Everyone sees each other like kind of all day and all of that. So just a different kinds of vibes and approaches and stuff out there for sure.
Yeah, one of my follow-ups that was going to be, I was curious about like types of ensembles. So you've kind of addressed that. I'm curious, and maybe this is kind of a question of ignorance. Do you see maybe like repertoire there that is selected? Are you seeing different types of repertoire selected in those types of high school bands or ensembles than maybe you do around here?
So for me, I'm like such a nerd. I love all the choral repertoire. So whenever the teacher had sent over the music, I was really curious to see what it was going to be. And it was all just things that I have seen before or have heard of before. Nothing too interesting. Definitely like, when you think of like the standards in PA, like what you're trying to meet for certain grade levels, that, just the normal type of rep.
So kind of then the differences are the ensembles. Is that, like the makeup of some of the ensembles that we might not have here. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's hit on the cultural piece of this then. So I presume that means not just what you're picking up in the schools. You've talked a little bit about that, but just experiencing being in New Mexico. What was that? What's that part of it like?
Yeah, so I'll talk about some things, and then I know Rose we has some things too. But one of the things that sticks out to me is we went to the Taos Playwo for a day, which was it's beautiful, and we were actually there on a feast day, and we got to see the Buffalo Dance. So we got a tour of the Playwos, and then at the end of the day, got to see the Buffalo Dance, which was interesting because it's a community of people, and we were asking like, oh, what time do you think this will start? What, and they were like, yeah, we don't know. It happens when it happens. And all the people there were, this only happens, once a year, this specific dance. And so everyone was very excited. It was definitely a different vibe on that day. And I know it was my birthday while we were there, so we went there and went to a restaurant and got to see a live mariachi band, which was really great. I'm sure Rose has some other things too.
Yeah, I would agree. The mariachi was definitely a highlight of the trip. I had never seen or heard a live group, so that was really, really cool to see. And then also just like the landscape, the area, seeing the mountains. It was so beautiful. Like we were driving around and I'd just be constantly staring out the window watching, and we were always trying to get good pictures, and it was just really beautiful the whole time we were there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, something over the years that has stood out to me is just how so many of the people there can converse in Spanish and English so fluidly. For example, the same guy, his name's Ken. He has been working at the hotel that we stay at the whole, like every year we have seen him. And, he'll talk to one person, in English, and he turns around, and turns to the next person in Spanish. And, it's just such a welcoming place to be, and just to experience every single thing, just walking around, whether it's walking around the plaza or the area, or being in the restaurants and interacting with people who live there. It's just an amazingly rich place, and it's a very artistic place too. So Ken always saves this Pasatiempo newspaper kind of thing that comes out every week, and he's always trying to like find things that we can go to, and most of them don't work out because our schedule's so busy, but it's there's just a lot of stuff that's going on there artistically too.
No one mentioned food. I thought that would have been on the list.
I was totally in our minds. We're all thinking food.
Okay,
The food is
you can say it. That's
so
fair.
good. It's so good. It's like, yeah, amazing.
There was a chocolate place called Cacao that we visited. Was it 3 or 4 times we went there? I don't know, but it was like delicious
Don't
chocolate.
say that on the recording. No.
Liquid chocolate that you could drink. You could get like multiple kinds. It was amazing.
So what do you think? Could you sum up like as what is the benefits of doing this then? Like if you had to sum this up to sell it to somebody else as the idea, what would you say is the benefit of doing this for music education majors?
I think as pre-service educators, we're just trying to get as much experience as we can so that we're as prepared as possible. So just the more experience, the better. The practice, and the different types of environments that you can get in front of helps you to be more prepared for any situation that you might end up once you enter your career. So yeah, just as much practice as possible.
Yeah, and to go off that, I really appreciated. It was good to get out of our comfort zones. We were in those public schools for a week, and so within the week, the students met us, and then by the end of the week, we were rehearsing with them for full periods at a time. And so really building like that rapport with them, I think was really great, and really for me pushed me out of my comfort zone. Every night I'd go back and I'd be thinking like, what am I gonna do tomorrow to like get them excited and make them like want to like listen to what I have to say, So that was definitely a takeaway.
For me, I think it's such a rich experience, and it's so hard to explain to students. So when we're recruiting students to go, like who wants to go? It's so hard. It's like Jonathan Helmick, he likes to say, for those who know, no explanation is needed, and for those who don't, none will suffice, or it's something to that effect. But it's like you can't really explain what it's like to be on that trip. So sometimes the students are like nervous about something, or like, something in the schedule change or something like that at school. And I'm like, we're just going with the flow here. And so I think just getting that experience to be somewhere new and be part of a different school, a different community, work with different students. So there are a lot of Spanish-speaking students there. There also are Native American students. Obviously, when we're at Santa Fe Indian School, you have to be 25% blood, one of the 19 tribes of New Mexico to go there. So, all of the students are Native American who are there. But I think one of the other things that I really like about the trip is, and this kind of goes back to the whole study away thing, is it gives the students a chance to see that there are other places, like what music education is like somewhere else. There are other places to potentially consider living. Not that we don't want them to leave Pennsylvania, of course, keep them all here, but it's possible to go somewhere else. And one of the speakers that we have every year is Deb Minyard, and she teaches a school that's like in the northern. It's still like Santa Fe address when you mail things, but it's not Santa Fe Public School. It's Powahki Valley Schools, and she was a teacher in Maine, and just wasn't. She got a job at her alma mater, and it wasn't going well, and so she talks to the students about this and about how all these things happen, and suddenly, I'm not going to tell her whole story, but she ends up in New Mexico in teaching in this school. And she went from thinking that she's a failure as a teacher, maybe she just can't be a teacher because she's not good at it, to finding the place that was the best place, this amazing place for her. And so I think for me, I love the students hearing that. I love seeing them try on a different school that's outside of our area and realize that maybe they get their first job and it's like not going that well for whatever reason, that there could be another job out there for them that would be the right fit and would be a place where they would be valued and be able to like look forward to going to work every day. So if anybody's listening and they're in a job and they're like, I don't like my job, maybe think about that. They're not necessarily New Mexico, but there's a place I think that where everyone can find a good home where they are enjoying being a teacher. So it's just nice to get out there, and they should go to eat, really. Because there is a specific cuisine. It's called New Mexico cuisine. Like it's not like eating Mexican food. It's not like eating Tex-Mex. It's like specifically New Mexico. It has a special taste to it. The chocolate is different there too. So it's worth going just to check that stuff out too.
So for Rose and Nate, I think it's probably fair to say that most music education majors have in their head as they're going through their course of study, like, I want to be a high school band director. I want to do elementary general music. I'm just curious, and it's okay if the answer is no. I'm just curious if your experience here, did it alter your thoughts in any way of like, what is my dream job?
For me, I always say I'll teach anything, but I'm really a choral person at heart, and that is just the way it is. But I will say I really enjoyed watching when we were observing. We observed like a piano class and a guitar class, and so seeing how they use general music there, and I think that really sort of opened my mind in that way, and also just going back at night and hearing what Rose and Alex, who was the other student with her in the band world, was doing every day. It was just like always inspiring. So, yeah.
I would say similar. Yeah. I like the band world and the general music world. But again, I'm like super open to anything. But I think this trip kind of affirmed that, like, we were able to observe a general music piano class, which was super, super cool to see the way that this educator managed the classroom and taught. So just seeing really good educators is inspiring. Yeah.
And Kathy, is this something that you've seen other schools doing?
No, not really. I mean, there are some times when there are trips that like music education majors will go on a trip somewhere, and they might, occasionally that there are some places do it, but it's not widespread for sure. Like I know Ohio State, Dave Hedgecock takes people on some trips and stuff like that, but I don't really know of many other people who do those kinds of things. So it's really special. It's a special time. We're kind of like a little family while we're there. Like we're even like driving a minivan around and all that kind of stuff. But in spending that time at night, like we had like study hall every night where everyone's just working on, they're writing lesson plans and doing things. I think it's so rich with layers. What we do, I don't really know that anyone else is doing it. We just, the trip that went 2 years ago, we actually wrote a book that's like how to do a field experience immersion in music class that F Flat Books just put out in January. because I'd love to see other schools develop partnerships like this, not necessarily with Santa Fe public schools, because, you know, they would get overwhelmed and whatnot. Maybe like everybody tries to go there. But in that book, I talk about a process for thinking about a place you could go. And a lot of that will just depend on what the comfort level is with travel, with maybe the music teacher educator who would be leading the group. But there's always somewhere that's different to go. And I think it's valuable to experience music education there and see what you want to bring back and everything. So I hope more schools will do it, but I don't really know of much else outside of some things Ohio State does.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really interesting to learn about it and to hear about it and to see something, you know, this kind of actually innovative happening here in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure, you know, a large piece of the puzzle is having a university that supports it. So it's really interesting to hear, you know, how it started from a university president. And obviously there has been enough support to continue through the years. And so interesting also that there's a book. So now there's a template for this out there for other schools who want to do this. So Kathy, Rose, Nate, thank you all for joining us to talk about it today. This was really an interesting conversation.
Thanks so much for having us, Mark. It's an honor to get to talk about it. I could talk about it forever. So if anyone wants to talk more, please just connect with me, and I'd be happy to talk more about it. And
if you're at the PMEA conference and you see any of these three, feel free, I'm sure, to ask them about it. I'm sure they'll show you some pictures too.
You bet.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you all for joining us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, the Grove City College Department of Music. We'll see you next time.